hello. I think that might have come off more creepy than spooky, so forget about it. Hey, hello. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I hope you're all doing well. In the spirit of the upcoming Halloween, what do we call them, celebrations? I was thinking of doing a Halloween special. So said and done, here I am. And my thinking around this is that I dug really deep into my record collection to present to you some of my favorite soundtracks or scores that I have in my collection in the horror genre, of course. And at first I thought, oh, there's so many for me to cover. There is, Goblin's beautiful soundtrack to Suspiria, a haunting one, I would say, and even for Tenebrae as well. And then you have the classics like John Carpenter's Halloween 1, 2, and 3, for example. So yeah, I could go down that route, but I decided to dig even deeper into my record collection to pull out some of those more obscure soundtracks or scores that I have here in my collection. So I'm going to mix it up a bit. You're going to see some blockbuster movie scores here as well, along with the more narrow path, so to speak, when it comes to score. So, without any further ado, let's start with one blockbuster from 1984, and I'm of course talking about Ghostbusters. Yeah, this is a score for Ghostbusters, not the soundtrack that was released in 1984. I had that back in the day. I don't know if I have it in my collection still, but it doesn't matter. That one consisted of pop groups, artists of the day in 1984. Thompson Twins was on that one, I remember. Was Madonna on that one as well? I can't really remember. It doesn't matter. This is the score by, as you can see, Elmer Bernstein. And to my knowledge, this was never released back in the day. There was probably no market really to release scores like this from Ghostbusters. All they wanted was Ray Parker Jr. singing Ghostbusters and then some Thompson Twins and all that. So that's why we got a soundtrack like that back in 1984. But a couple of years ago, this one released by Sony Music. Beautiful double LP, this one. A beautiful, beautiful presentation. As you can see, there is some, is it called spot varnish that we have here? It's really, really nice. I don't know how well it comes off on camera, but it is a gatefold, and there we go. A Stay Puft Marshmallow Man there on one side, and then some other pictures from Ghostbusters there as well. Really, really nice presentation there. And then on the back, we have this one with the track listing. There's quite a lot of tracks and cues on this one, and to my knowledge this is a complete score by Elmer Bernstein, and it sounds absolutely fabulous, this one. It's a really good pressing, and I was really delighted when it was released that we got to hear the full score for the first time on record, at least to my knowledge. And this is how the vinyl looks like. Isn't it gorgeous? I think it's meant to be Slimer, of course, that hungry monster that we can see chewing up a lot of food in that movie. And as you can see, otherwise it's a transparent vinyl, and a really, really good pressing as well. Nice and quiet. Really love this one. So we have to include this one on a Halloween list, right? Because it's such an iconic movie and an iconic score as well. There are some really haunting themes in this one. So if you haven't checked this one out before, the score for Ghostbusters 1984, do it right now. And while we're at it, why not add Ghostbusters 2 as well? This time around is not Elmer Bernstein. This is Randy Edelman who did this one. Not as good, in my opinion, as the first score, but still good. It's a good score. And I think this one was released a year after the other one was released, if I'm not mistaken. But it's the same nice presentation there with that glossy spot varnish thing going on the cover. And we also get a gatefold for this one. Really nice there with pink ooze on one side and some ghosts as well. And there we have the whole team, of course, on the other side. Really nice picture once again, a really nice presentation. This one is just a single LP, not a double one this time around, but I really appreciate they did the gatefold for this one. But to keep things in check and in line with the first release, they did this with the vinyl. Wow. You can see the pink ooze is just oozing out there from the middle of of the record. Really, really nice. And once again, a great pressing of this record. Really, really good job there by Sony Music. And I'm not sure, I'm going to mention a lot of, like I said, these were more mainstream ones, but I'm not sure if you can still get these, but I'm sure they will be available on streaming services. When it comes to the rest of the things that I'm going to present today, I'm not sure if they are all on streaming services. I should have checked this, but I haven't. But at least I know for a fact that most of the tracks are available here on YouTube if you want to have a listen. And from 1982, we have a very enjoyable movie called Forbidden World, with an absolute stunning film score to this one. This film was directed by a guy called Alan Holtzman, and it was produced by what's they call New World Pictures or something like that. It was owned by Roger Corman, the infamous, the famous producer of low-budget movies. And yeah, boy, what a enjoyable film this is. I watched it way back in the 80s and I thought it was absolutely fantastic. And what really stuck with me with this one, except for the plot and the whole film, the film as a whole, was the score for it. The music really stood out on this one. At the time, I never heard anything like it. Very synth-driven, very experimental. I just loved it. And Roger Corman, he was famous for taking young talents under his wings and offer them different roles in his different productions. So he's responsible for taking on James Cameron at some point, and even further back than that, Jack Nicholson, and so forth and so on. So the composer for the score of Forbidden World is called Susan Justin, a young aspiring musician at the time, and he said to her, "Do you like to do the score for this one?" At least that's what I'm thinking he would do. And she said, "Yes, I would like to do that." And boy, what a job she did with this one. I love it. So years and years ago, when this one was released, I was over the moon because I never been able to get hold of an original copy of the soundtrack. And yes, I say original copy. And it is weird to me, because there was a soundtrack released for this film in 1982. And it really blows my mind, because we're talking Roger Corman here, low-budget movies. Why would he invest in releasing a soundtrack at all? But perhaps that was the norm for New World Pictures or whatever. I don't know, but I would like to think it was such a groundbreaking score that Susan Justin did for this movie. That's why they released it. So yeah. But like I said, I never got hold of it, but I got hold of this reissue from years and years ago from Death Waltz Recordings, and it's a brilliant re-release. Not a brilliant cover, in my opinion. I'm not a fan of this art style at all. I don't know if it's pencil or ink, it doesn't matter. I'm not really a fan. But hey, it's the music that's the most important here. In a perfect world, they would have used the original artwork for this, but this is what they went with. So it says here on the hype sticker, it's a heavyweight case-bound tip-on sleeve, and yeah, it sure is. It's one of the few ones I have in my record collection with this kind of tip-on sleeve. It's a bit taller as well than normal 12-inch as well. Not much, but a bit. But very heavy-duty, thick cardboard on this one. So I really like that sleeve. With the artwork by Kimberly Holiday. Yeah. So great reissue. And if we turn it over, we can see some promotional pictures here of Susan Justin at work in the studio and so forth and so on. But what about the music on this one? Like I said, I at the time, I never heard anything like this. The best explanation I can give, it's new wave music meets experimental electronic music mixed up with a classical film score. Beautiful melodies, in some cases with some tracks, very minimal, very experimental, but really a good way to set the mood for the different scenes. And the music really stands out in this movie. And I think a really good example for the kind of music that we hear in this movie is to play a bit from theme from Forbidden World by Susan Justin. Yeah, so there you go. Very new wave-ish to me. Yeah, absolutely. And other things that we got with this re-release from Death Waltz was a small booklet as well. It's only 4 pages. You got that new commissioned artwork there, but then when we open it up, you got some liner notes there from the director of this movie, Alan Holtzman, and Susan Justin as well. And on the last page we have this, and here you can see this is what I saw back in the 80s when I refer to the original artwork. It's this one, but it was also released in some territories around the world as Mutant. It was called Mutant, but to me it was always Forbidden World. And here you can also see some of the other musicians that helped Susan Justin. There was some Swinglish for you there, me trying to say musicians. Yeah, so we can see that Jupiter 8 was involved in this one. Some piano, live drums, clavinet, and a blaster waterphone. I wasn't sure what a blaster waterphone was, so I had to look it up, and it's this. And of course, this is a classical sound that we heard in so many horror movies throughout the time, I would say. Beautiful, beautiful thing. Yeah, and not only that, we also got, I wanted to say, a huge poster with this one, with the new commissioned artwork. Here you go. So if you're so inclined, you could frame this one and put it up on your wall. I won't do that anytime soon, but hey ho, that's just me. And to round things off with this one, we got it on I wanted to say clear vinyl. It doesn't state anything on the hype sticker about this, but I'll now name this cloudy vinyl or dim vinyl, whatever you want. But yeah, a beautiful pressing of this one. They do state on the booklet that because of the original master tapes, there is some surface noise, as they put it, on this one. Yeah, and there is some noise present on this one, but nothing that really distracts me from enjoying all of these tracks. And I also read something, by the way, when reading up a bit on Susan Justin. I came across a comment on Discogs about this reissue as well. And apparently, if you already own the original album that came out in the 80s, the original soundtrack, there is a speed difference between the two. So this one, the new Death Waltz remaster, is a bit sped up. So yeah, you could probably adjust that if you have one of the turntables. I have one of those with a pitch control. You can just pitch it down a smidge and apparently it will sound okay. I can't hear any difference at all. I got used to listening to this music by watching the movie over the years. So listening to this one, I can't really tell the difference. But if I had the original, I probably could. So just so you're aware, there are some speed differences from this one. But highly, highly recommend that you check this soundtrack out if you fancy a bit of experimental electronic music and some new wave and all of it mixed up to a beautiful perfection. Susan Justin, Forbidden World. We'll stick with the 80s, and 1980 a film called Inseminoid was released, and boy, this one gave me nightmares at the time when we watched it on VHS. We were probably way too young to watch anything like this. I was scared, you know what. from watching this one. But the film itself, watching it today, it really didn't held up that well. I think there's some good acting going on in it. The plot is quite interesting. But like so many other movies from that time, when it comes to special effects and all that, it haven't really held up that well. It's a British-made movie from a director called Norman J. Warren. I really appreciate most of his movies. This is probably my favorite one of his. Still very enjoyable watch. I don't get nightmares anymore from this one. And back in the day, what really stuck with me from this one, except for the nightmares, was the music by John Scott for this one. A very unique kind of score. Just like with Susan Justin and Forbidden World, this is a very synth-driven track. This is all synthesizers, I would say. Synthesizers and vocoders, basically. A very experimental record, but it's brilliant for setting the mood for this sci-fi film, which, by the way, is another Alien ripoff as well. Yeah. It's made the year after Alien was released. But yeah, the music stuck with me, and on I think it was my second visit to London in one of those mega stores we used to have back then, H&B or Virgin or whatever it might be, I saw this one and I was blown away. I was like, wow, it's actually the music from Inseminoid, so I had to pick it up, and it's been with me all these years, and it's been well played. And got a lot of hairlines to it, so I think I need to get another copy of this one. And by the way, I to my knowledge, this one has never been re-released on any format, but I could be wrong, so please correct me down in the comments if you know differently. But yeah, I would love to see this one on a reissue on either CD or an album, because like I said, mine has a lot of hairlines. I wasn't that careful with all my records back in the day. This one released on Citadel Records. This is, of course, the original pressing from 1981, it says on this one. I know the film probably came out in 1980, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, a brilliant experimental synth-driven electronic music score from John Scott. And if you're really interested in going down to the details like I am, you could read here on the back cover all the instruments and all the equipment that John Scott used for the recording of this score. Absolutely brilliant one. And yeah, check it out. Absolutely, if you're interested in more experimental music scores, just like Forbidden World with Susan Justin. And let's go for more 80s ones. There's going to be a lot of that here. This is the Boogey Man. Yes, yet another film that might have caused some nightmares with me, because we watched it at way too young of an age back in the day. I'm not really going into the plots here about the films that I'm talking about, but this is basically about a haunted mirror, and it hasn't really held up that well today. I still watch it back from time to time, but that's mainly to listen to the wonderful score, because it sets such a great mood for this movie. And of course, there's a lot of nostalgia as well involved in me watching this one. But this is a case where the score itself outshines the movie completely. It's very prominent in the film as well, the score. And like I said, it sets a mood brilliantly for this one. The film was directed by Uli Lumel in 1981, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, let's stick with 1981. And he didn't commission someone to score this movie like your usual composers out there or some well-known composers. No, he went to a couple of sound consultants in California called Synth Sound Tracks. That's it. And sound consultants were basically, you could hire them to do jingles for your radio station or some lengthier things for TV channels or whatever. I don't know really. But he commissioned synth soundtracks, or is it synthy soundtracks? I really don't know. I will call them synth soundtracks, to do the whole score for the Boogey Man. And boy, what a job they did. They had all the new fangled technology of the time, and by saying that I mean synthesizers. And what a score they did. A really haunting, atmospheric score. Once again, very minimal, but boy, it works so well. And you don't have to watch the movie really. You can just buy this soundtrack or listen to it wherever it's available and just enjoy it for what it is. Some beautiful melodies in there, some shorter cues, of course. It's all very haunting and mysterious. I just love this one. This is a reissue of the soundtrack that I bought years and years ago, and it's from Light in the Attic Records, and it was a limited edition, it says up here, of 300, and apparently I got number 53. But I'm pretty sure that this one was re-released a couple of years later, and it might still be available out on the market. But like I said, check here on YouTube or your streaming services. Hopefully it's out there. Yeah, a really good one. I can't give it enough praise. And it just comes on a standard black vinyl, but it sounds really good. This one, they did a great job. And synth sound tracks that is responsible for this score was actually Ed Cristiano, I have it written down here, John Bartlett and Tim Krog. And usually when you look things up for this soundtrack, it's the credits just says Tim Krog, so I think he was really the driving force behind this, perhaps. But yeah, really nice soundtrack. Yeah, I said that a couple of times now, so leave it. And now move on to the next one, and this one is from 1972, so we go way back in time now, more than 10 years back from the previous one. And from one of my favorite Italian directors out there when it comes to the horror genre, and that is Mario Bava, and we're talking Baron Blood. Yes, with the lovely Elke Sommer in one of the leading roles. And yes, that is Elke Sommer that we see here, screaming her lungs out because she just encountered Baron Blood and his castle, his torture dungeon thing. Yeah. And on the back here, we can see the original Italian title. And no, I'm not going to try to pronounce that one, but it roughly translates to The Horror of the Nuremberg Castle. Yeah, but when it was distributed worldwide, it was known as Baron Blood. A great movie, fresh on the heels from his previous movie in 1971, Bay of Blood. Yeah, another movie with blood in its title. And that's probably my favorite one of Mario Bava's movies. More or less the blueprint for what to become the first movie in the series of Friday the 13th movies. So if I'm going to give you a recommendation of something to watch this Halloween, go and watch, Bay of Blood and Baron Blood as well. Two great movies from Mario Bava. And the score for this one is made by Stelvio Cipriani, or Cipriani. I'm sorry about that pronunciation if I got it wrong. But that is, of course, an Italian composer. And he has a background in jazz. and you can tell when listening to this one. The title track, for example, when you put it on, you might think we got the wrong record here, because it sounds like more loungy, more like a cocktail party going on. And that's his jazz influences there, of course, but it's lovely. The melodies are absolutely lovely when it comes to Stelvio Cipriani. I just love his music. So there are, of course, lots of elements of jazz and some bossa nova and all that in this score. But as we gradually progress through the score, it gets more of a gothic feel to it. That old school gothic music that we could associate with the older horror movies. Don't think modern movies at all here. This is very more gothic. Yeah, that's it. So yeah, I love it. A very acquired taste, Stelvio Cipriani's music for the different movies he scored. He scored everything, by the way, from comedies to thrillers, slashers, gothic horror, all of it. He's done it all. I think he even done some TV scores as well. Brilliant, brilliant composer. But it is an acquired taste. Let me just say that. This particular one I'm holding in my hand was released back in 2014. Yeah, and it was released by Dargo Red, as we can see down here. I'm not familiar with Dargo Red. This is the only one I have in my collection. But as you can see here on a hype sticker, it is the Bloody Edition. And why is that? Yeah, this is a limited edition of 500. I got 472, as we can see there. But it's also in bloody red speckled vinyl, and it's the complete original score available for the first time ever. Yes. Like I said, I don't think I listened much to the score at the time when I saw this one. Since then, I also bought it on Blu-ray a couple of years ago and still enjoy it. But listening to it now on its own, the score, I'm being reminded of the different scenes, of course. But that might have not been the case when I saw it back in the 80s on VHS, because when it was distributed in America, they took out the score, the Stelvio Cipriani score, and exchanged it for one made by Les Baxter. A jazzy score as well, but quite different from this one. So it might have been when I saw it in the 80s that it was a Les Baxter score. So that's why I didn't really recognize it at first when I was listening to it. But yeah, who knows? But it's a weird thing, right? Just to change the score. Like, that score doesn't hold up. We'll hire someone else here. We got Les Baxter. Let's him do it. A very competent man as well, but still a weird thing to do. Yeah, so this one is a double LP as well. No gatefold cover on this one, but a very interesting vinyl, as we just been told by the hype sticker. And yes, indeed, I'm just going to show one of them because they're both similar. Red speckled vinyl there. Really nice. And we can see Elke there screaming in the middle. And then on the other side, we have the track listing. A beautiful pressing of this one. I'm very, very impressed with this, because we have to keep in mind it's a movie from 1972. And what they've done with the remastering or the mastering of this one is absolutely beautiful. Hardly any background noise at all for this one. It's nice and quiet. The pressing is stellar on this one. Highly recommend you pick this one up if you're a fan of Stelvio Cipriani's music. Absolutely. But also recommend the movies they're attached to as well. We are not going to leave Stelvio there. We're going to talk about another favorite soundtrack of mine from Stelvio Cipriani, and it's this one, Nightmare City, or, as we can see from the Italian title here, I'm not going to try to pronounce it, but it was more known as Nightmare City around the world. Yeah, this is the complete score for this one, a CD that I picked up years and years ago. I can't even remember when it was. Is there even... no, there is no year for it. It only says limited edition of 1,000 copies, but I'm sure if my mind won't fail me on this one, I've seen it being reissued on vinyl as well at some point a couple of years ago. So I think you will be able to listen to this one somewhere. Stelvio Cipriani, we are now in 1981. The director for this one, by the way, is Umberto Lenzi. He got infamous for doing a couple of cannibal movies back in the late 1970s, and now he's back with radioactive, contaminated people who turns into the Walking Dead, or rather the Running Dead. They quite fast, these zombies in this one. Very intriguing story. Hasn't held up when it comes to makeup department and all that today, but I'm still very fond of watching this one for nostalgic reasons as well, and for the music as well. It's beautiful. Once again, Stelvio Cipriani gives us some beautiful music cues on this one. And speaking of cues, there is 36 tracks on this one. And granted, not all of them are very long. There's just small snippets just to set the tone, because after all, this is program music made for a film, right? But the intro or the title track for this one is absolutely beautiful. You could still tell he's got his roots in jazz, but there are some haunting soundscapes for this one, and some haunting percussions as well. He handled it very, very well. And of course, there's a lot of synthesizers involved in this one, because we're talking 1980s now. But yeah, boy, what a job he does. But from time to time, to lighten the mood, to set the scene, so to speak, for this movie, he inflicts things like a track called Sustain, which comes and goes throughout this movie. And it's a very hard to describe. Once again, a very Stelvio Cipriani melody on top of that one. But the whole arrangement is very cheesy, a nod to the disco of the 70s perhaps. It's very hard to explain, it's just a mishmash of it all. And when we hear this Sustain track for the first time in the movie, it's in a TV station. They are doing some aerobic session, filming that. And yeah, it's just wonderful cheese. Yeah, gotta love that one, right? It always brings a big smile to me every time I hear that track. But yeah, this one, another gem of Stelvio Cipriani music. But like I said, a quiet taste. It's a bit of a roller coaster of score. Let's now move on to the 1960s, and 1968 to be more specific, and a cult classic of a horror movie. I'm of course talking about Rosemary's Baby. Directed by Roman Polanski, and the score is written by Krzysztof Komeda. A brilliant composer, Polish origin, jazz as a background. Once again, we got another guy with a jazz background here, and you can tell that from a lot of his scores that he made. But he's got a very particular style in music writing. So whenever you pick up or listening to something that Krzysztof Komeda made, you'll be like, yes, that's very much Krzysztof Komeda. You can tell it straight away. At least that's my thinking of it. He'd been collaborating with Roman Polanski since his early days in filmmaking. He did Knife in the Water, the score for that one, and the film before this one was called The Fearless Vampire Killers, which is a brilliant comedy, by the way. If you haven't seen it, that's another tips for you for this Halloween. But this one, he really excelled when it comes to the score. He really sets the mood here, especially from the opening titles, the opening track from this one, which you probably all heard at some point. And if you can't remember it, put it on and you'll be like, yes, of course. Classic. It's a kind of a lullaby where Mia Farrow, who plays Rosemary in this movie, lulls along with the melody, and you know that something is up. There's something askew here. This is weird, and it's getting weirder and weirder as we go. And it's not as big of a roller coaster as the Stelvio Cipriani soundtracks that I'm talking about. He uses a lot of lovely melodies, like I said. Christopher Comeda as well. There are some lighter parts in this, but there's more of a psychedelic twist to his music when you hear it. So yeah, a bit of a roller coaster, but he's a master of setting the tone for the different scenes in this movie. And I could actually pick any of these tracks, but I'm going to pinpoint one of them, and it's one of the last tracks on this album, and it's called What Have You Done?
To its eyes.
He has his father's eyes.
The way he uses the sounds in this scene, for example, and all the other scenes, it just keeps that tension going. You're on the edge of your seat in every scene, and that's not only down to the cinematography and the direction of this movie. It's very much down to the music as well. It really instills that fear in you, that tension and all of that. A brilliant, brilliant album from Christoph Komeda. Yeah, and this one was released years and years ago. I can't really remember when. 2012, wow. Ooh, it's been a while. But I hopefully it's available on streaming services, or they might have done represses of this one. So if you're really interested in this one, hunt it down either on the second-hand market or if there's a new pressing out for it, because it's a lovely, lovely thing. Released by Waxwork at the time in collaboration with Paramount Pictures, and it's just a single LP, but you do get a lovely gatefold cover here with some beautiful stills from the movie, along with some information around the music for this film and so forth and so on. And here you got the back of it as well. A beautiful, beautiful presentation for this one. And the vinyl is not bad either. You get it on this spooky purplish. I don't know how good it comes off on camera there, but it's actually a bit purplish with the black splatters splattered along the vinyl. And it sounds really, really good. They did a good job with the mastering of this one, and the pressing really, really good. I have nothing to complain about when it comes to this one. I remember back in the late 90s, early 2000s, I had a couple of downloads, like, bootlegged tracks from this score, and they were horrible sounding ones. And yeah, so I'm so thankful that I eventually got hold of the full score, remastered and all of that. Yeah, so that's nearly it. But if for any good Halloween party, you're going to finish off things with some disco dancing, right? Or at least some dancing. And you have to include this last one. This is Phantasm by Captain Sorrow. This is a movie called Phantasm that was released in 1978, and it is a movie that, like so many of the other movies I talked about today, that really, really holds up well still today. Very well made. I never seen anything like it, not before and not since this one was made. It's got a very particular tone to it. Let's just say that. I won't spoil anything If you haven't watched it, go and watch it. But this record, I wasn't aware of its existence until a couple of months ago when I stumbled across it by chance. And since then, I acquired a copy of it. I just had to have it. Like I said, this is Phantasm, so it's the theme from Phantasm, made by, in this case, Captain Sorrow. And I had to look this up. So Captain Sorrow was actually Bidoo. He was a British Indian singer-songwriter, composer, and all of that. A bit of a legend in the disco sphere in the late 70s. He had his hand in a lot of productions when it comes to disco. And this is no exception at all. This is a brilliant disco remix, we might call it, of the Phantasm theme. With beautiful congos and beautiful disco beat to that. Yeah, it's just brilliant, brilliant. You just have to listen to this one to believe it. And as you can see up here, it says blood-stained yellow vinyl, and they don't disappoint at all. It's actually blood-stained yellow vinyl. There you go. Beautiful one. And yeah, this is original from 1978, and it's well worth picking up just for this A-side. But also the B-side, which has nothing to do with Phantasm at all. It's called Sure Can Boogie. Sure Can Boogie. That's the title of it. Another brilliant disco track. I love myself some disco. Yeah, really, really good. So that is my last recommendation for this Halloween special. Lovely, lovely record. Go and check it out. Go and check them all out if you're interested. But what are some of your favorites when it comes to setting the mood for Halloween and all the festivities that goes with Halloween as well? Please put them down in the comments. And if I got anything wrong about any of these records, something that you might know that I don't, please put that down in the comments as well. Yeah, so that's basically it. I want to thank you all for watching yet another episode here with me. A very spooky one, right? No. Not really. But yeah, thank you so much for watching this. And until next time, you all take care of yourself. And remember, your disco needs you. Adieu.